All right, welcome back in. Hang with Hester, presented by Richards Honda. Joined now by Cody Worsham, digital media reporter over at LSU, part of the Hey Fightin' podcast for LSU football, the Boot Up podcast for LSU basketball, and pick the worst soccer team in the English Premier League. That is him, Cody Worsham. Cody, how you doing?
Please, we're 4-0 this weekend. We're on the right track. Arsenal coming back.
Okay, fair enough. All right, since we can go so many different ways with you, let's go ahead and start with baseball. Initial thoughts over the weekend. There are two wins, I should say, in the series against Indiana. They dropped the third one, but a lot of good, I think, in there for LSU baseball.
Yeah, I like this team. I like this team coming into the season because of the pitching staff. They still have some questions to answer there, mostly just in terms of durability and longevity. But I saw some promising signs. Cole Henry threw about as well as you could expect him to throw. Jaden Hill was phenomenal in 2 innings of work, and looks like there's something to build on there. I thought A.J. Levis looked sharp in his start. I thought Landon Marceau, he didn't have his best stuff, but he kind of showed you how he can still put you in a position to win a game even when he doesn't have his best stuff. So to me, everything else, the lineup, it's still taking shape. They're going to experiment this week with some different things and try to find the right pieces. But to me, every college baseball team, it's built on if you're going to make a championship run, it's going to be built on pitching. And LSU's got enough arms that if they can stay healthy, they have a chance to be very special. And so that's what I kept an eye on this weekend, and I was nothing but impressed.
Not surprising, Cody, that you're seeing some lineup changes. We all know that Paul Maneri likes to tinker with the lineup in the beginning portion of the season to see what sticks. Maurice Hampton going to play the next 2 games in center field. Looks like Devin Dugas goes to second base from right field. You got Doty playing at third base. Zach Mathis moves over to shortstop, something that we thought could happen. Didn't honestly see it happening this quickly, though.
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity with Southern at home and then Nichols on the road tomorrow. Kind of gives you a chance to put those guys in some situations that are higher stakes than an inter-squad scrimmage, but maybe not the stakes of a weekend series or an SEC series. So we'll see. In theory, it sounds good, but can Zach Mathis give you enough mobility at shortstop to have the quality of defense you need at that position? I think he'll be fine there, actually, and Paul Maneri seems to as well. But can Cade Doty move over to third base? Paul Maneri was concerned about his defense coming into the spring, and then can Dugas hit at second base? He's got a great swing. He's put some good at bats together throughout his career. But if you look at the numbers, he just hasn't been able to string it together yet. In to be fair, very limited opportunities. So in theory, it's promising. And of course, Maurice Hampton, we'd love to see him kind of come through to his potential. I think he will. But he's still finding his baseball legs after a football season. So this is a good week to try it. I'm excited to see it. It's going to have me watching these midweek games a little bit closer than maybe I would otherwise. And I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Cody, Dan Canterbury here. And I want to say, first of all, as a former LSU coach, you do a tremendous job. And, of course, when I was coaching, we still had dial-up internet. And so you wouldn't have been a factor, but you really do a great job, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
You look at this team and you look at what Paul Maneri is trying to do, and as you know, you've been through a couple of seasons. What starts out is pretty much just an estimate of what your team is going to be like when you start out in the beginning of the year. I think Paul, working through his people, is really going to find out who can do it with the lights on, who can be consistent. And I think the biggest thing he's got to do, and I'm asking your opinion on this, like with Mathis and this infield change, is Mathis going to short with Doty at third and with Dugas at second? Is that more of a positive from an offensive side to offset what you may lose on defense?
Yeah, that's going to be the most important thing, I think, with this sort of experiment. And like I said, I think Mathis at shortstop will be fine. I don't think he'll be elite and make Alex Bregman type plays going in the hole. I don't think he's quite that athlete, but I think he's going to be very, very solid for you. To me, it's the other guys. Can Doty adjust at third base? The reason that Paul Maneri moved him to second base this spring was because he wasn't as developed defensively as he wanted him to be. I think Dugas is a guy that they put him in the outfield this fall, I think Paul Maneri called it a Ryan Shemp type of situation. He developed well in the outfield, but they bring him back to second base, and he's gotten better there as well. So I think with the pitching staff that this team has, you almost want to try to infuse a little bit more offense just to see if you can get away with it. Because the pitching's so good, you feel like they're going to hold them down to 1, 2, 3 runs when you've got your best arms out there. But the flip side could be true. You could say, look, we've got such a good pitching staff. Let's double down on that. Let's make sure that we're not giving up free runs because of some defensive miscues, which we did see this weekend. I thought the defense was pretty good overall, but there was some double plays that they missed. There were some misjudged fly balls in the outfield, which is going to happen in the first weekend. But it's almost a philosophical question that Paul Maneri has to figure out. And the only way you can do it, as you know, is to see it in the games, because you can do anything you want in practice, and there's just some guys who deliver when the lights are on and some guys who don't. So it's going to be a fun little experiment. I think that's going to be the biggest piece of the lineup that Paul Maneri has to figure out so far.
Cody, before we move on to basketball, of course, Kentucky coming to town, most impressive thing you saw over at Alley Box this weekend?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's got to be Jaden Hill, what he looked like in 2 innings, especially that first inning where, he comes out touching 98. He comes in with a 91 cutter. I mean, imagine trying to hit a 91 mile per hour fastball, much less a 91 mile per hour cutter. So he's got elite stuff. But for him to go out there to have the command that he had, the presence that he had, I mean, just physically he's imposing. Not to mention the stuff that he's got. To me, and then the fact, that yesterday we talked to Paul Maneri and he said, hey, he feels great. Jaden Hill has no soreness. So last year he kind of got that little taste of it early in the season, and then I don't think he pitched again the rest of the year after that first start. Well, he's good to go. It sounds like he's going to be good to go, and they're going to try to now extend him to 3 innings and 45 pitches the next time. So that's what I'm most excited about, because that's when your ceiling as a team goes to another level. If Jaden Hill can not only give you quality innings out of the bullpen, but maybe he's a guy that if he holds up over the season becomes a weekend starter. And then, I mean, Henry and Hill, like that's I'm not going to say it's 2 guaranteed wins every weekend, but you like your chances.
2 Friday night guys, if you get those 2 lining up on a weekend. Yep. And, that's the biggest thing is if you can put a horse out there that can line up against anybody else's number one, you got a good chance to win. That's a good thing. The other thing I like that Paul's trying to do, with that pitching staff, there's a way to look at it. When you bring in the 6th, 7th inning, when you bring in your relief pitching, you may bring in your relief fielding, with playing offensive lineup early, and with the pitching you've got, you get a couple run lead. Let's play defense at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that at a number of positions. If you're worried about Hal Hughes' bat, he can come in at shortstop and solidify you there. A catcher, I mean, Alex Milazzo looks fantastic this weekend. This is the most catcher depth they've had in a while, with Garza, with Milazzo, with Hayden Travinski, who's still developing a little bit there. But I'm not saying this is going to happen this year, because it almost certainly won't. But Zach Mathis was drafted as a catcher, and I talked to one of his junior college coaches that's a catching coach, and he said Mathis, like, his pop time was in like the 1/8 when he was actually working on it. I don't think he's ever actually caught in a game, but they ran through some drills just to see how you would project there. And the Twins came out and looked at him and loved him so much they drafted him. So you've got options defensively. That was a little bit of a tangent. But, yeah, you can do it in the outfield too if Maurice Hampton is still finding the bat early in the season, but his speed out there in center field is going to be a game changer. So, yeah, that's definitely an option. And that's what I like about this team. There's a lot of depth. There's depth in the bullpen. There's depth defensively. And now you're just trying to figure out the right pieces in the lineup.
All right, Cody, as we transition to basketball, obviously it's always a big show when Kentucky comes to town. Regardless of records, it's always going to be a great environment when the Wildcats come to play the Tigers. But this is a chance for LSU to get back in the race in the SEC because of Auburn losing to Mizzou over the weekend. Of course, LSU lost as well, but if you go out and you beat Kentucky, then you're right back in the situation for being tied for the SEC lead. So we all know how big this game is, but give me a blueprint tonight for LSU to win against Kentucky.
Yeah, I think it's the same blueprint that LSU has pretty much every game. One, I think they have to get back to dominating the glass, which is going to be tough because Kentucky is elite rebounding. But if you look at the last 3 or 4 games where LSU hasn't quite been themselves, they went from a stretch of 5 or 6 games where they were just crushing teams on the glass, out rebounding them by 10, 15 rebounds a game. the last couple of games, it's either been LSU's been out rebounded or it's been a very, very close margin. LSU's only won the battle by a couple boards. So I think they have to do that, especially in the offensive glass. Got to get those extra possessions, which they kind of live off of because their half-court offense, as efficient as LSU is offensively this year, and they're like top 5 in the country, their half-court offense isn't dynamic, but it's the ability to get those putbacks, get the second chances, get to the free throw line that makes them so dangerous. So I think they've got to be a little bit better on the glass. And I think defensively, you can't let Kentucky make a bunch of threes, which Kentucky doesn't do. But everyone has seemed to do that against LSU recently. So you can't let them get hot at the three-point line, and you got to shore that up. And then I think the free throw line battle is going to be huge. That's where LSU has a huge advantage every game. They're typically making more than the other team attempts. They're going to have to Kentucky is kind of the one team in the SEC that's on their level in terms of getting to the free throw line, scoring at the free throw line. It's almost two identical teams. They like to score in the paint and at the free throw line. I think Kentucky's a little bit better defensively on paper than LSU, actually quite a bit better defensively. But LSU's a little bit better offensively. And so you can win that free throw line battle and make more free throws than Kentucky attempts, which not many teams have done this year, win the glass. And then don't let Kentucky get hot from three. I think you got a shot.
Cody, when you look at Darius Days getting into foul trouble, and then you're already a team that just is not deep. I mean, I always kind of joke you're kind of 6.5 guys deep right now with Marlon Taylor being the main guy off the bench, and then Hyatt gives you some minutes. And then we know Charles Manning came back, but he had to play more last game than probably expected because Darius Days got into foul trouble. To me, that's something that LSU just they can't afford to do because they are such a thin basketball team. Now, the starting five, you'd put those starting five up against anybody. I mean, they all average double figures, really good starting five. But late in the games, when you get those heavy legs, they've got to have all their players stay out of foul trouble. And it's one of those things, Cody, where you don't want to tell them to, hey, don't foul because you don't want to play soft defense, but they just can't afford to get in foul trouble.
Yeah, Days is so important to this team. I tweeted out a stat last night. I'll try not to get too deep into the weeds here with numbers, but Darius he leads the team in plus minus in SEC play. He's plus 64. The next closest is Skylar Mays at plus 38. So there's a big gap there. And then when you factor in minutes, like how many fewer minutes Days has played because of foul trouble. If you look at it per 40 minutes, he's outscoring when he's on the floor. LSU outscores opponents by about 9 points per 40 minutes. That's more than double anybody else on the team in SEC play. So he's huge to this team. He makes them better. His offensive motor, his defensive motor, he can move his feet in the pick and roll on defense. So you can't expose him. You can't attack him in the pick and roll. He can guard fives. He can guard fours. He can guard threes. He's going to eat up everything on the glass. He's going to be efficient offensively, make open shots, and finish literally everything in the paint and around the rim. So he's got to be on the floor. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. It drives me as crazy as it drives everybody that watches LSU play when he gets those 2 or 3 fouls that he could just avoid.
Right.
Some of it's on his teammates. They've got to protect him better and not expose him when he's on the back line of the defense. And he's got to contest shots at the rim. But he's also got to be smarter about not sticking his hand in, trying to get a cheap little steal here. Just give him the 2 points. It's okay. They can have the bucket this time. We need you on the floor. We're better when you're on the floor. Just don't pick up those cheap ones. And if he can do that, it really helps his team.
All right, he is Cody Worsham, does a fantastic job covering all sports over at LSU baseball, football, basketball, you name it. Our guy Cody has it covered. Also, I'll leave you with this. When you look at the English Premier League table, at number 9, Everton with 36 points. Number 10, Arsenal with 34 points. Thank you, Cody.
We're trending in the right direction, okay? I like our chances. Talk to me in May. We'll see where we are in May.
Spoken like a true internet guy. We're trending.
All right. Fair enough there, Cody. All right. Appreciate your time as always, brother.
Yeah, thanks.